Welcome to Lawyer Business Advantage. This podcast is dedicated to helping attorneys earn more money, get better clients, and spend more time with family. I'm your host, Alay and founder of Law Firm Success Group. Smart business guidance for small law firms begins in 3, 2, 1. And it's my pleasure to welcome back to Lawyer Business Advantage my friend and colleague, Dominic Grew. Dominic is the owner of Elevate Business Coaching, and he is also a practice advisor with me in the Law Firm Success Group. Dom, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you doing, Alay?
I am doing great. It's great to have you back on the show. And I know we have a lot of Provisors listeners out there, so congratulations on becoming a group leader for Provisors.
Why, thank you.
And so I am tempted just out of habit to say, tell us a little bit about your group. So I guess, tell us a little bit about your group.
Happy to. I've been in Provisors it'll be coming up on 5 years. And, now I have the opportunity to lead the group. And it's good. I've really enjoyed my Provisors journey. And I'm also kind of excited now to, take the group in a little bit of a different direction, which is awesome. A great group, and as always, there's things that you can do to improve it. So I'm looking forward to, getting my executive team around me,
for sure,
helping them leverage their skills to kind of move it to even greater standards. So it's fun. I really enjoy it. Yeah, it's awesome.
Provisors ought to pay me a referral fee. So Matt, if you're listening, and for those of you who are in Provisors, Dom, what's the name of your group?
Yeah, so it's the Dedham group. So that's Dedham, Massachusetts, which for most people I've never heard of it, but it's just on the south side of the city.
Got it. Well, congratulations again. It's fantastic news, and I know you're going to do really, really well. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about law firm growth. And this is a topic that's near and dear to yours and my heart, both. And we've collaborated together on several different clients who've been wonderful. And you have other clients of your own as well. And when you work with clients and you work through law firm growth, what's one of the things that really jumps out as a big issue that most firms have to overcome?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Obviously, I have lots of conversations with people. When I talk about growth, one of the things that seems to be holding a lot of my clients and other folks as well back from attaining growth is talent. Trying to find good staff in today's environment, at least for law firms, it seems like it's never been more difficult, and it's hard for law firms to switch from being the practitioner then to becoming like the recruiter. So I think the ability to find your staff is a real challenge for many of the small law firms that I work with.
Yeah, it's not easy for sure, which is why I wrote a book about it. I think you and I kind of got into the
you wrote the book, Alay.
Yeah.
I'm preaching to the converted, right?
That's exactly right. Yes, I totally agree with you 100%. But when you and I both got into this, it was really with the idea of let's help law firms grow. And I thought, and I think you probably thought, that it was a lot of marketing and business development coaching that we'd be doing. At least that's kind of what I expected. Mm-hmm. And that stuff is actually, and not to diminish the great coaching mm-hmm. and consulting that's out there around business development and marketing, but for small law firms these days, getting clients is not really that hard. And the harder issue is when you filled up, your capacity and you can't take mm-hmm. on more work and you got to go hire someone. Now, what do you do? What's your experience been? Is that kind of your story as well?
Yeah, no, it's definitely, it's funny because by virtue of my personality, my work experience, I love growth. I love working with my clients to build, to bigger, to better, whatever that is. But what I found, Alay, is that, if I'm asking someone I've met, so what are your plans to grow my firm? They almost like roll their eyes and say, are you kidding? I just need to find people to manage what I've got. So, it truly is a real problem for law firms. to find that staff so that they can actually do the work that they want to do, so they don't become overworked and burned out, because that's ultimately what happens, right? If you don't have people to do the work that you need. So it's so important.
And it's compounded by the fact that attorneys don't know when to hire. So they oftentimes think about hiring too late in the game when they're already
Yeah,
buried. And that's
yeah,
a problem because
yes,
now they've got to go out and try and squeeze in amongst their already overwhelming day, looking for someone, interviewing people. And God forbid if you hire someone, because then you got to train them,
right,
which takes up more time. And so it's time that they don't have. And so waiting too long to hire is just such an issue.
yeah, and
When
yeah, and
sorry,
it's
go
like
ahead.
it's like all of these things, right? Uh, it always takes longer than you think it's going to take, right? Because it's a process. And although you may be ready to hire, well, the rest of the world has been going on with its stuff. Just because you're ready to hire doesn't mean that someone is going to fall in your lap, right? So the process takes some time to work through. And really, hiring such an important function that you really do want to take your time at it, because you want to have an A team at your firm working for you, right? A great foundation that you can leverage. So you really do not want to be in that situation where you're rushing to do it and trying to find quality talent in a market that's already, I'm not going to say talent starved, but it's hard to find. You're competing for talent in a way that maybe you haven't ever had to in the past. So again, people's expectations, it just takes longer than you expect.
Does. And we're going to get to that competition for talent in a moment because that
Mhm.
is, the salient issue here really at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But before we do that, one of the issues that we encounter is, when an attorney realizes that they are buried with work or not, and it's time to hire. The question is, what are my options and who do I hire and what alternatives are there out there? When you're working with clients and you're working them through their issue, they know they need to hire somebody,
Mm-hmm.
but then they don't know what that really looks like. How do you work them through that process?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, I'm always trying to get an idea of like how of their thought process going through it, because there's this strange dichotomy where they go to, I definitely need to hire, to being, well, I'm scared to hire. It's too big of an expense for me to take on. The workload has gone. So there's this kind of bizarre thing that goes on where they want to hire and then they talk themselves out and so on. And that also delays the thing. One of the things that I kind of encourage my clients to think through is, well, rather than thinking of this hire as being a full-time 40 hours per week person, maybe that's not what you need currently. Maybe you only need somebody for 10 hours a week. Maybe you need somebody 20 hours a week. So I get them to think in terms of uh, what's the resource that they need, and perhaps full-time 40 hours isn't actually what they need at this point. So they're making this a bigger step than it needs to be. So I guess to answer your question, I think I encourage them to think through the options of how can they resolve their resource problems, and that could be through a contract person, right? And again, some lawyers are totally close to that, and some will say, "Well, tell me more. How does that work? I have no idea." Right? But I put it on the table as an option. Uh, Engaging a resource or somebody in an off console capacity is another way to perhaps plug a gap. A third might be to say, you know what, I have so much work, I got to find somebody else that can take this on, right? So pushing it and getting out of some of the matter types is another way to do it. And the part-time thing, obviously. Well, why don't you just test the water and hire somebody for 20 hours a week and see how that works? And if you get full with that, then think about either another person or expanding that individual's hours. So I encourage them to think of the options and kind of ease into it, which makes it seem a little less daunting.
And how do you figure out whether that next hire should be an attorney or a paralegal or somebody else?
That's a great question. You always ask such good questions, Lay.
You
You
know,
know,
it comes from
go ahead.
experience. We've worked through these issues so many times.
Yeah, well, obviously, you know, you're trying to say what's the level of expertise that you need at your firm, and obviously a full-time, attorney hire is probably, uh, I'll use the word most expensive option, but I don't really mean it from an expense perspective. I mean it's the most skilled thing. Maybe there are other ways to get the work done by pushing the work down, and that doesn't mean absolving yourself of responsibility. It just means bringing in more people to help, whether that's a paralegal, or maybe some other office support person. But you know, the thing that's kind of interesting today is that there have never been more options um, at your disposal for finding ways to help you get bandwidth. And sometimes it will come back to, hey, I need a senior associate here. There's no way around it, and that's fine. But sometimes you find that not everybody is doing attorney level work, and so if you can leverage other resources, either within the firm or, dare I use the word, outsource, that can help move you forward dramatically as well. So yeah, having that conversation about precisely what is it that they need, because it may not be the most expensive option.
Right. Yeah, excellent point, because a lot of times when someone starts off their firm, they're wearing all the hats because it's just them.
Mm-hmm.
And then over time, hopefully they bring in some people, but before that, they're wearing all of these hats.
Yeah.
And as if they want to grow, they can actually, like you said, outsource or hire for some of the non-attorney, even the non-legal tasks. So if someone is doing their own bookkeeping, highly
Mm-hmm.
encourage an attorney to outsource that, because an attorney's expertise is practicing law, not doing the books. So, find a really good bookkeeper and move your stuff over there so you don't have to
Mm-hmm.
deal with it. They'll do it faster, better, and cheaper than you as an attorney would be able to.
Yeah.
That's one thing. The other
Yeah.
thing would be, like you said, maybe exploring an assistant or virtual assistant. Um, the other interesting thing, well, before we move on,
Sure.
to that topic, those are all what you and I call cost centers, right? And this
Yeah.
is something that I think we've both spent a lot of time educating
Mm-hmm.
clients on. When they think about hiring an attorney or a paralegal, they're thinking, wow, that's a huge expense.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not really an expense. It's actually a way to make money, right?
Right. Yeah.
Why don't you talk us through that?
Yeah. No, I love that. So before, I ventured out into the world of business coaching, business development, I was in the investment industry, and so all day long we're making decisions about, do we invest in this or do we invest in that? And of course, the question always comes back to, well, it's simple. What's the return, right? So I have this ROI, return on investment lens, all the time, and generally speaking, forget about just law firms, but we don't we don't uh, we don't buy things unless there's a return, right? And that return is greater. The value that you derive, the return, is greater from what your outlay in terms of expense. And that may seem so obvious, right? But it comes back to, again, whenever I'm working with an attorney and they're saying, well, I'm not sure that I can afford this expense. Just like you say, well, why? The question is, well, why is it an expense, right? So again, being able to see the other side of the equation. So just say, for sake of argument, I ask, well, how much would this hire be? And they tell me it would be $100,000. And I asked them then, okay, well, what do you think the additional revenue is that would come to your firm by having this extra person or part-time resource? And they say it's 300. So that's a 3x return, 300%. Like, why wouldn't you be doing this, right?
Yeah.
It's so obvious, but you're right. The mindset is very much about, oh, here's another expense, but actually, it's the means by which you can build and grow your enterprise,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. And I get it, for you attorney entrepreneurs who are listening to Dom and I talking about this and saying, no, but it's a natural expense. We get it. We understand that, yes, you're still writing a check to this person. And if you don't have the work to fill up their plate, then it is going to be a drain on your firm's financial resources. So as Dom said, it is an investment for the future. And that's
Mhm.
actually where attorneys who are maxed out actually
Yeah,
have an advantage because they can just take a big chunk of their work, ideally, hand it off to this person, and this person can, in short order, be break even. So they're paying for themselves, they're generating enough billable
mhm.
to pay for themselves very quickly.
Yeah,
Uh, like in my experience, Dom, it's been about if they're billing out about 10 hours a week, they're generally covering their costs. What's
yeah,
your experience been?
yeah. I agree. That's exactly right. And just going back to that other point there that you were making, uh, you were talking there about the expense thing, right? About the mindset of the expenses. If you're consistently, uh, you know, uh, billing a high volume of work, I ask my clients how, because again, the question is always about, well, uh, you know, there's ebbs and flows in the business, but I encourage them, like, if they have kind of the pedal to the metal for a period of time of 3 months, like how much do you need to see to have confidence to make that hire, right? And getting them to think that through because they're so fixated on where they are at the current time, uh, that they sometimes can't see that.
Yeah.
And the other thing, LA, as well, just to go back one step as well, the thing about I'm taking on more expense. I don't know if I would have enough work for this person if I do hire. Well, that's a different discussion. That's about having confidence in your business development capabilities and opportunities within your firm, which, as you and I know, we can certainly help them with that as well. And you know, you can really get results from focusing on those areas which have the greatest opportunity for your firm. And what that does is it takes that argument or concern in your head, but what if I can't find enough work for this person? More often than not, my experience is there's plenty of work, right? There's just that initial resistance that I need to find somebody, right? But once they've made the decision that they really do need help, the, somehow the work always seems to come.
Yeah. Especially if the person's already brought in work. I mean, they've already built the firm and built up their book of business. So if they have
Yes.
more time to spend on that, they're just going to bring in more work. I mean, that's usually how
Yeah.
that conversation goes.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. But it's an interesting, as I've worked with clients and seen them go through this process in their mind, it's fun to actually, I wouldn't say hold their hand, but ask them to question and ponder on the dialogue that they're having in their mind about why they need one day but they don't the next. And in the
Well,
meantime, they're deferring taking action.
yeah, our clients tend to be good people. We have a screening
Yeah.
process by which we only work with clients that we really enjoy, and they're good people. And so the
Yeah.
last thing they want to do is be in a situation where they hire somebody, the work dries up, and they have to let them go. And I totally get it. And it's a wonderful concern to have. Um, I've never had that happen in anyone I've worked with. Have you?
Right. It's funny as you say, I haven't either.
Yeah,
And again, I want to be conscious because I mentioned, I am someone that I love growth, but I need to step back from that. It's not my company. It's not my firm. I don't push my clients to say you can grow, 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 because they have to feel comfortable at it, right? It's
yeah.
really, it's their firm. They live and die by the results of their firm. So I never want to push a growth agenda on them. I just want to encourage them to really think about how they can operate their business uh, smartly. But having said all of that, I haven't had a situation where my client has come back to me and said, that was a bad decision to make that hire. We were too quick, right? And there wasn't the business behind it. We jumped too early on that. I've yet to find or I've had that experience with one of my clients,
Yeah, I
remarkably.
haven't either. And
Yeah.
I just thought about this as we're talking. I've been working with
Yeah.
attorneys for over 10 years, and I've never had that happen. Now, it's not to say I'm sure it has happened and
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
will happen, but it
Of
hasn't
course.
happened to me or my clients, which is kind of wild.
Yeah.
And it
Well,
sounds like
again,
you've had the
and
same
again,
experience.
it comes back to, attorneys, by virtue of their profession, don't tend to be risk takers, right? They're thoughtful. They think of everything that can go wrong with what they're about to do. And critical thinking is a great skill to have. It protects you and it keeps you out of trouble. But there are times where it can hold you back uh, on your business side. So anyway,
And you talk about growth, and your point's really well taken. Is when we're talking about growing a law firm, and attorney entrepreneurs, please, listen to this a little bit. Take note. If you're growing a law firm, it means you're starting from somewhere. It means you're starting with a firm, and the firm you have already, that's already there, is there because of the investments you've made. It may not be investments of time. It may be investments of money, or it may be investments of time. Most often it's a combination of both. You've invested some money, you've invested a lot of time, and now you've built this firm that is producing, and now you're at capacity. If you still want to grow, and to your point, Dom, that's the question, is if you still want to grow. Some
right.
of our clients don't want to grow, which is great. Some of our clients do want to grow, which is great too. We don't care what they want to do as long as they want to build a perfect practice that makes them really happy. That is my goal.
Yes.
And I know it's something your goal too. So if part of that perfect practice is growth, they're going to have to invest time or money or both to move it forward. And if you're out of time, you can only invest money, which means you got to go higher.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or solve the problem in another way, which might be implementing systems or automation or something like that. That's a whole different conversation than what you and I are having.
Yeah.
But that's
You
really
know,
what we're talking about, isn't it?
it is, it's interesting, when we think about growth, right? You say, well, what does that mean? And it can translate into numbers, well, more revenue, I want this amount of revenue, or no, it's not revenue, I want more profit. But growth can also mean maturity. And by that I mean maturity in your firm and how you operate, just that life cycle of you start
Okay,
out,
I thought you were. I had flashbacks of my wife coming back and telling me to grow up, but that's not what you're talking about.
grow up. No, but maturing your firm, right? On that life cycle of when you start, and it's all hats on, you do everything and all that sort of stuff. But growth can also mean maturity in terms of, what, I've been at this for a while. I'd like to find a way. I'm comfortable with what I make from my firm, but I'd like to do it with so it's easier, right? And that's the maturity to be able to stand back a little bit from your firm. And you and I do a lot of that as well with our clients, where it's not just about making money and having a bigger firm and more people. It's about being able to step back now that they have been running their firm for some time, and saying, I would like to do this in a different way that impacts that's going to impact me and my family and my lifestyle. I've got to make some changes here. So that's just another way to think about growth. It can also be that type of growth of stepping back. So it's not, running your business doesn't take as much out of you as it has to.
Absolutely. Amen. So we're gonna come back next week and continue this conversation. So for you attorney entrepreneurs who are listening, Dom and I are going to continue talking about hiring. We're going to get into the tactics of hiring, how you compete against larger law firms. All that stuff is coming up next week. But meanwhile, if you do want to get a hold of Dom and chat with him, he has a fantastic coaching practice in his own right. Dom, what is the best way for people to connect with you?
Easiest way to connect with me is on LinkedIn. There is only one Dominic Grew. That's GREW. So ping me on LinkedIn. If LinkedIn is not your thing, elevatebusinesscoaching.com. That's where you'll find me.
Fantastic. Dom, thanks for being on Lawyer Business Advantage.
Awesome. Thank you, Alay.
And that's a wrap for this episode of the Lawyer Business Advantage podcast. One thing that would really help both us and other new potential listeners is for you to rate this show and leave a comment in iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you tune in to listen. And I want to hear from you, so connect with me on LinkedIn and let me know what you think of this episode. And if you are a solo or an owner of a small law firm, and you're looking to earn more money, attract better clients, or reduce your stress, we would love to talk with you to see how we can help. Request your free law firm assessment by visiting lawfirmsuccessgroup.com. Again, that URL is lawfirmsuccessgroup.com. We look forward to talking with you soon. Thank you for listening. My name is Alay and Until next time, remember, you can seize freedom, you can embrace happiness, you can build your perfect practice.